The dust had a way of settling into everything out here in the Arizona territory. Your clothes, your skin, the cracks in your soul. But that afternoon, as I rode through the barren stretch of land where the sagebrush grew stubborn and twisted, something else hung in the air. A scream. Not the kind that comes from startled cattle or a coyote's midnight song. This was raw, human. The kind that makes your blood run cold even when the sun's beating down like the devil's own furnace. I pulled the reins, and my horse, a grizzled bay gelding-eyed named Gunpowder, snorted and stamped. His ears flicked forward, alert. He'd heard it too. Now, I should tell you something about myself before we go any further. My name's Caleb Thorne, and I've seen enough ugliness in my 40-some years to know when to mind my business. Used to wear a Ranger's star back in Texas, before the range wars turned neighbor against neighbor and left my family in pine boxes. After that, I became what you might call a drifter, moving from one dusty town to the next, taking odd jobs, trying to outrun ghosts that rode faster than any horse. I'd learned to keep my head down. The frontier had a way of chewing up men who played hero. But that scream, it came again, weaker this time. A girl's voice, cracking with desperation. My hand moved to the Colt at my hip without thinking. Old instincts don't die, they just sleep light. I urged Gunpowder forward, following the sound across a dried creek bed and over a rocky rise. What I saw on the other side made my jaw clench so hard I thought my teeth might crack. A cattle ranch spread out before me, small but well-kept once upon a time. The main house sagged on one corner, its whitewash peeling like sunburned skin. Corrals stood empty except for one, and that's where my eyes landed and stayed. A girl, couldn't have been more than 16, was tied to a weathered fence post. Her arms were stretched above her head, bound with thick hemp rope that had already rubbed her wrists raw and bleeding. The sun had done its merciless work. Her face was burnt red, her dress torn at the shoulder, revealing more rope burns and bruises that told a story I was already sick of reading. Standing over her was a man I'd have recognized as trouble even if I'd been blind drunk. Tall, lanky, with the kind of meanness that settles into a person's face after years of letting the worst parts win. His clothes were trail-worn but expensive ones, the kind a gambler or a man with pretensions wears. In his right hand, he held a branding iron, its tip glowing orange from the fire pit beside him. "Please," the girl whimpered, her voice barely carrying across the distance. "Uncle Silas, please. I beg you, just make it quick." I froze. Those words hit me like a gut punch. She wasn't asking for mercy. She was asking for a swift end to her suffering. And the bastard, her own uncle, just smiled. "Quick." Silas's voice carried a cruel amusement. "Now where's the lesson in that, sweet niece? You sign them papers, this all stops. Simple as pie." "I can't," she sobbed. "It's all I have left of them. It's all." He raised the iron closer, and she flinched so hard the post shook. Something inside me snapped. I'd spent 3 years trying not to be the man who intervened, trying not to care, trying to convince myself that the frontier was what it was, and one broken ranger couldn't fix it. But watching this, I couldn't. I just couldn't. My hand had already drawn the Colt before I'd fully decided. The hammer clicked back, loud in the desert silence. "That's far enough." Silas spun, eyes wide, then narrowing as he took me in. Another drifter, another nobody. The kind of man the territory swallowed whole every day. "This ain't your concern, stranger." He didn't lower the iron. "Family business. Family business." I repeated the words slowly, tasting the acid in them. I dismounted, keeping my gun trained on his center mass. 20 feet separated us. An easy shot. Funny kind of family that brands their kin like cattle. She's a stubborn little fool who don't know what's good for her. Ranch is dying anyway. Might as well sell it to folks who can use it proper. I could see it now, the whole ugly picture. This girl, this child, had something he wanted. Land, probably. Maybe water rights. Out here, water was worth more than gold, and men had killed for less. "Put the iron down." My voice came out flat. Ranger's voice, the one that didn't ask twice. For a moment, I thought he'd be stupid enough to try something. His eyes flicked to a rifle leaning against the corral fence, too far to reach. Then to the hired guns I hadn't noticed yet. 2 men emerging from the barn, hands hovering near their holsters. The odds had shifted, but I'd already made my choice. I said put it down. I cocked the hammer another click for emphasis, even though it was already ready to fire. Psychological warfare. And untie the girl. Now. Silas's face twisted with calculation. Whatever he saw in my eyes must have convinced him, because he dropped the iron into the dirt and stepped back, hands raised in mock surrender. Cut her loose, he barked at one of his men. Ain't worth the trouble today. I watched, gun steady, as one of the hired thugs approached the girl with a knife. She flinched again when he got close, eyes squeezed shut. The ropes fell away, and she collapsed forward. Would have hit the ground if I hadn't moved fast, holstering my weapon and catching her under the arms. She weighed nothing, all bones and desperation. I got you, I murmured, lowering her gently to sit against the post instead of hanging from it. Easy now, you're safe. Her eyes opened, brown, like creek water over river stones, and stared at me with such raw gratitude it hurt to look at. Who the hell are you? Silas demanded. Nobody important. I pulled my canteen from my belt and held it to the girl's cracked lips. She drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. Just a man who's seen enough evil for one lifetime. This ain't over, stranger. You just made a powerful enemy. I looked up at him, and whatever he saw made him take a step back. Your mistake, I said quietly, was thinking I gave a damn. Her name was Eliza Whitmore, and the ranch had been her parents' before a wagon accident took them both 6 months back. Should have passed to her clean and simple, except Uncle Silas had shown up claiming guardianship rights, a bottle of whiskey in one hand and forged documents in the other. She told me all this in broken fragments as I helped her to the main house, her weight leaning heavy on my shoulder. The ranch house interior told the same story as everything else. Neglect wrapped around something that used to be loved. A woman's touch lingered in the faded curtains, a man's pride in the solid timber beams. But Silas had brought rot with him. I settled Eliza into a chair at the kitchen table and went about building a fire in the old iron stove, more to give her something comforting than because we needed heat. The Arizona evening would turn cold soon enough, but for now, the ritual mattered. There's a spring, she said suddenly, her voice stronger now. On the northeast corner. Papa said it was why Grandpa settled here in the first place. Purest water in 3 counties. There it was. The real prize. And your uncle wants it. He's got buyers lined up. Cattle barons from California. They'd pay $20,000 for the water rights alone. She laughed bitterly. I didn't even know what we had until he showed up with papers saying I had to sign everything over. Said it was for my own good. Said a girl my age couldn't run a ranch alone. But you wouldn't sign. It's all I have left of them. Her voice broke. Every fence post Papa hammered. Every room Mama painted. How could I just give it away? I found myself at the window, looking out at the darkening land. Silas and his men had withdrawn to the bunkhouse, but I could see lamplight flickering there. They weren't leaving. This wasn't over. You got family besides him? Someone who could come help. She shook her head. Mama was an only child. Papa's people are all back east, and they didn't approve of the marriage. Didn't come to the funeral. Alone then. Completely alone. A 16-year-old girl against men who'd kill for a spring and a piece of land. I should have ridden out right then. Should have pointed her toward the nearest sheriff, wished her luck, and put this dying ranch in my dust. Instead, I pulled out a chair and sat across from her. Tell me about the property lines, I said, and where you keep your ammunition. Her eyes went wide. You're staying? For tonight, at least. I couldn't quite look at her. Come morning, we'll see what's what. But I knew. Deep in the marrow of my bones, I knew I wasn't leaving this girl to face wolves alone. She tried to smile through split lips. I don't even know your name. Caleb Thorne. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. I don't know what would have happened if, don't. I held up a hand. Don't thank me yet. This is liable to get uglier before it gets better. We spent the next hour taking inventory. The ranch house was defensible, thick walls, good sight lines, and Eliza's father had been smart enough to install storm shutters that could be barred from inside. Ammunition was scarce, but sufficient. 2 boxes of .44-40 rounds for the Winchester rifle above the mantel, and a box of .45 for my Colt. I taught her to load the Winchester, her hands shaking at first, but growing steadier with each repetition. She was a quick learner. My papa tried to teach me once, she said softly, working the lever action. But Mama didn't like guns in the house. Said they brought nothing but trouble. Your mama wasn't wrong. I checked the action on my own weapon. But trouble comes whether you're armed or not. At least this way you got a fighting chance. As full dark settled, I moved through the house extinguishing lamps, leaving only one burning low in the kitchen. Shadow and light. That was the defender's advantage. Let them wonder where we were. Eliza sat in her parents' old rocking chair, the rifle across her lap, looking simultaneously young and ancient. Can I ask you something, Mr. Thorne? Caleb. Caleb. She tested the name. Back in Texas, you said you lost people. Was it like this? I was quiet for a long time. Outside, a coyote sang its lonely song, and gunpowder snorted from where I'd stabled him in the barn. Worse, I finally said. Range war over water rights, same as here. Only I was on the wrong side of it, wearing a star, and trying to keep peace between men who already decided blood was the only currency they accept. My wife and daughter were in town when it went hot, caught in crossfire that should never have happened. I'm sorry. Me too. I checked the window again. Still just lamplight in the bunkhouse. That's why I don't wear the star anymore. Couldn't see the point of law when law failed the people I loved most. But you helped me. Against my better judgment. I almost smiled. Seems I'm a slow learner when it comes to staying out of trouble. She laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so unexpected in this house of grief that it startled us both. Mama used to say that people who run from trouble are just running in circles, Eliza said. Because trouble's patient. It'll wait. Your mama sounds like she was a wise woman. She was. Eliza's hand touched something at her neck. A locket I hadn't noticed before. They both were. That's why I can't let Silas win. It wouldn't just be losing the ranch. It'd be losing the last proof that good people lived here. That they mattered. Something in my chest cracked open, just a little. I'd spent 3 years trying to convince myself that nothing mattered. That the world was random cruelty punctuated by brief moments of less cruelty, and the best you could hope for was to ride through it unscathed. But this girl, battered and burned and tied to a post just hours ago, was sitting here talking about proof that good people existed. Maybe I was the slow learner about more than just trouble. Get some rest, I told her. I'll take first watch. Will they come tonight? Probably not. Silas strikes me as the type who likes an audience for his cruelty. He'll wait for daylight, make a show of it. But I'm not taking chances. She nodded and rose, then paused at the doorway to what must have been her bedroom. Caleb, when you froze earlier, when I said to make it quick. I waited. For a second, I thought you were going to shoot him. Your face. I've never seen anyone look like that. Would it have bothered you if I had? She considered this with a seriousness beyond her years. No, she said finally. But I think it would have bothered you. And I'm glad you didn't. Killing him would have made you like him. Just another man taking what he wanted with a gun. She disappeared into her room before I could respond. Smart girl. Wiser than she knew. Because she was right. For about 3 heartbeats there, I'd been ready to put a bullet in Silas and ask questions of his corpse. It would have been easy. Justified, even. But I'd been the man who pulled the trigger in the name of justice before. I knew where that road led. Straight to a bottle and a grave. Usually in that order. They came at dawn. Not creeping or subtle. Silas wanted us to know. The sound of boots on the porch, deliberate and heavy. 3 men, maybe 4. I shook Eliza awake gently, finger to my lips. She grabbed the Winchester without needing to be told, her face pale but determined in the gray morning light. Eliza, Silas's voice boomed through the door. Enough of this foolishness. You got 1 hour to sign them papers, or we're coming in. And that drifter you picked up? He'll be buzzard food by noon. I positioned myself at the window, gun drawn. 2 men flanked the porch, the same hired thugs from yesterday. A third I hadn't seen before leaned against the corral, rifle cradled casual, but ready. How many bullets you got for that rifle? I whispered to Eliza. 15 in the magazine. 1 chambered. You remember what I taught you about breathing? She nodded, settling into position at the opposite window. Good girl. Don't shoot unless I say. And if it goes bad, really bad, you run for the barn, take gunpowder, and ride for town. Sheriff's in Copper Ridge, about 10 miles north. I'm not leaving you. Eliza, I'm not leaving you, she repeated, her voice iron-wrapped in silk. You didn't leave me. There wasn't time to argue. 1 hour. Silas shouted again. Then we settle this the hard way. I did something that probably confirmed his opinion of me as a fool. I opened the door. Stood there, backlit by the dim interior, Colt hanging loose at my side in a position that looked casual and wasn't. She's not signing anything, I called out. And your hour's already up. Silas's face went through several interesting colors. You got a death wish, stranger? Had one for about 3 years now. Hasn't taken yet. I smiled, and it wasn't friendly. But here's what's going to happen instead. You and your hired rats are going to mount up and ride out. Today. Right now. And you're not coming back." One of the thugs laughed. "That's 3 guns to 1, Drifter. Maybe you can't count." "Oh, I can count just fine. You want to test how many of you I can drop before you drop me? Because I'm thinking it's all 3, and Silas there pisses himself running for cover. But we could find out scientifically, if you're curious." The laughter died. These were hired guns, not true believers. They'd kill for money, sure, but dying for it was another matter entirely. I could see the calculation in their eyes. Was $20 a week worth getting perforated by a man who looked at them like they were already dead? "This is ridiculous," Silas sputtered. "The girl is my ward. Legal and proper. I got rights." "You got the right to leave breathing or leave bleeding," I interrupted. "I'm a generous man. I'm letting you choose." For a long moment, nobody moved. The desert held its breath. Then Silas pulled a pistol from his coat. He was slow. Drunk slow, anger slow, thinking had all the time in the world slow. I shot the gun out of his hand before he'd cleared leather. The sound cracked across the ranch like thunder. Silas screamed and grabbed his hand. I clipped his thumb, nothing fatal but painful as hell. His weapon skittered across the porch. The 2 thugs on the porch went for their guns. I dropped the first one with a shot to the shoulder, spinning him into the wall. The second one got his weapon up, but a rifle shot from inside the house. Eliza, God bless her steady hands, shattered the porch rail inches from his boot, and he froze. The third man by the corral raised his rifle, and I swung my Colt toward him, already knowing I was too late. He had the angle. He was going to. A shot rang out. He crumpled, weapon falling unfired, and behind him stood a man on horseback I hadn't noticed. Older, gray-bearded, wearing a tin star that caught the morning sun. "Sheriff's Department," the man bellowed. "Next man moves gets acquainted with my Winchester." And just like that, it was over. Turned out Eliza had snuck a letter to the sheriff's office in Copper Ridge 2 weeks prior, describing her situation. The local sheriff, a weathered old lawman named Marcus Griggs, had been investigating Silas's claims but needed time to verify documents. He'd arrived this morning with 2 deputies, drawn by the sound of gunshots. "Been watching from the ridge," Griggs told me later, as his deputies hauled a cursing Silas into a wagon. "Wanted to see how it played. You handled yourself decent. Could have intervened sooner," I pointed out. "Could have," he shrugged. "But then I wouldn't have seen what you were made of. Or what the girl was made of." He glanced at Eliza, who was having her wrists bandaged by one of the deputies. "She's got sand, that one. Her folks would be proud." The hired guns sang like canaries once they realized they were facing charges. Silas had indeed been planning to sell the ranch for $20,000, keeping 18 for himself and giving the thugs 1,000 each to handle Eliza if she refused to sign. The documents were forged, his guardianship claim fraudulent. He'd been banking on her being too young and isolated to fight back. He'd been wrong. As they hauled Silas away, he shouted back at me, "You should have killed me, Drifter. Would have been kinder. Prison out here's worse than death." I just watched him go, saying nothing. Eliza came to stand beside me, her bandaged hands wrapped around a cup of coffee the deputies had brewed. "He's right, you know," she said quietly. "Prison in the territorial system, he might not survive it. That's his problem now, not ours. You could have shot him dead. Back there on the porch. Everyone would have called it justified." I looked down at her, this fierce slip of a girl who'd been through hell and come out talking about mercy. "Your mama was right," I said. "About more than just trouble. Killing a man because he deserves it and killing him because it's necessary are different things. I've done both, and only one lets me sleep at night." She smiled then, real and true. "Will you stay? Just for a bit? The ranch needs work and I could use the help. And the company." I should have said no. Should have ridden off into whatever was next, keeping my promise to stay uninvolved, unattached, unbroken by caring. But looking at this ranch, this small piece of land with its hidden spring and its ghosts of good people, I felt something I hadn't felt in 3 years. "I'll stay through spring," I heard myself say. "Help you get the place running proper. After that, we'll see. After that, we'll see," she echoed, and it sounded like hope. The seasons turn the way they do in the Arizona territory, slow and unforgiving and beautiful in their harshness. Spring gave way to summer, and summer to fall. I mended fences and broke horses, taught Eliza to shoot properly, to read the land, to understand that a ranch wasn't just property, but a living thing that needed tending. We drove cattle to market and cleared brush from the spring, revealing water so pure you could see straight to the bottom, 20 feet down. She grew stronger. The bruises faded. The nightmares came less frequently. And I stopped running. Not from choice, exactly. More like I woke up one morning and realized I'd forgotten to leave. That the sunrise looked different when you had someone to share it with. That purpose didn't require a star on your chest. Just showing up, day after day, for someone who needed you. Sometimes Sheriff Griggs would ride out, ostensibly to check on Eliza's welfare, but really to share a bottle of whiskey on the porch and talk about the old days. He told me they'd sent Silas to Yuma Territorial Prison, where the heat and the hard labor were already doing what bullets would have done faster, but less legally. You think about it. Griggs asked me one evening, pinning on the star again, territory could use men like you. Had my time with that. I watched the sunset paint the mountains red and gold. I'm more useful here. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Redemption looks different for everyone, I suppose. Was that what this was? Redemption? Maybe. Or maybe it was just learning that heroism didn't require a dramatic sacrifice. That sometimes the bravest thing you could do was stay, build, protect, choose mercy when violence would have been easier. Eliza started talking about the future, expanding the herd, maybe bringing in sheep, planting winter wheat in the bottomland where the spring's runoff collected. She talked about her parents less, but remembered them better, if that makes sense. Less grief, more gratitude for the foundation they'd laid. One evening, as we worked on reinforcing the barn roof before the winter storms came, she paused and looked at me with that serious expression she got sometimes. What you said that first day, about not being important. You were wrong. Was I now? You saved my life. Not just from Silas, but from becoming the kind of person who survives by forgetting who she was. You showed me it's possible to be both strong and kind. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just hammered another nail. I'm trying to say thank you, she continued, for staying, for teaching me, for being the kind of person Papa would have wanted me to learn from. Your Papa probably would have shot me for being a drifter. She laughed. Maybe. Or maybe he'd have recognized what I did. That sometimes the best people are the ones trying to outrun their own goodness. Smart girl. Too smart for her own good, probably. But she wasn't wrong. Winter came hard that year, with snow that buried the corral fences and winds that howled through gaps in the barn walls we thought we sealed. But the ranch held. The cattle survived. The spring kept flowing, even when everything else froze. And when spring came again, my self-imposed deadline for leaving, I found I'd run out of reasons to go and accumulated too many reasons to stay. Eliza was 17 now, legally able to manage her own affairs. The ranch was thriving, producing enough income that she'd been able to hire 2 reliable hands. She didn't need me anymore, but maybe I needed her. Not in a romantic way. I was old enough to be her father, and the thought never crossed my mind. But the way a man adrift needs an anchor, the way a purpose needs a place to land. So I stayed. And the ranch that had been Eliza's parents' legacy became something else. A proof that good people had lived there, yes, but also that good people could live there still. That cycles of violence could be broken. That mercy was stronger than vengeance. That sometimes the unthinkable act wasn't violence. It was choosing to stay. Now, I'm betting some of you listening to this story have your own Silases in your life. Maybe not with a branding iron, but with words that burn just as deep. People who take and take, who mistake your kindness for weakness, who can't understand that mercy isn't the same as surrender. This story, Caleb and Eliza's story, isn't really about the Old West. It's about that choice we all face when we at our lowest. Do we become harder than the people who hurt us, or do we find a different kind of strength? Caleb could have killed Silas. Would have been justified. Would have been easier, honestly. But he chose the harder path. He chose to see Silas face consequences rather than just face death. And in doing so, he saved more than Eliza's ranch. He saved his own soul. Now, I want you to do something for me. Think about where you are right now. Maybe you're listening to this at work, on a long drive, or lying in bed at 3 in the morning when the world feels too heavy. Whatever your circumstance, know this, you're tougher than you think. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still trying, that's proof. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is there. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And take care of yourself, will you? Drink some water. Get some sleep. Call someone who makes you laugh. I know I don't always respond to comments like I should. These old hands and older eyes aren't what they used to be, but I read every single one. Your words matter. Your stories matter. Until next time, friends, keep riding forward. Because the trail might be long, but you don't have to ride it alone.